His full name is Ricardo Leyva Muñoz Ramírez. But we all know that the name of Richard Ramirez, Julian and Mercedes Ramirez, February 29, 1960, as the youngest of 5 children in Texas in El Paso, was born in the city. His father, Julian, a former police officer who was a Mexican citizen and later a worker on the Santa Fe Railroad, was prone to tantrums that often resulted in physical abuse. At age 12, Richard, or Richie, was strongly influenced by his older cousin, Mike Ramirez, a United States Army Special Operations Forces combat veteran who often bragged about his horrific abuses during the Vietnam War. She showed Richard eerie Polaroid photos of her victims, including the Vietnamese women she had raped. In some of the photos, Mike posed with the severed head of a woman he abused. Ramirez, who started smoking marijuana at the age of 10, connected with Mike on tales of knuckles and bloody wars. Mike taught his young cousin some military skills, like sneaking kills. During this time, Richard would often run away from home at night and lie in the cemetery, as his parents did not hesitate to beat him for educational purposes. Ramirez was present on May 4, 1973, when his cousin Mike killed his wife, Jessie, with a .38 caliber pistol during their argument. It is said that blood splattered on his face at this time. After this incident, Ramirez became sullen, withdrawn from his family and peers, and became an introvert. Later that year, her older sister Ruth and husband Roberto took Richie into an obsessive voyeurism that led to his nightly exploits. Ramirez also started using LSD and developed an interest in Satanism. Mike was found not guilty of insanity for Jessie's murder and was released in 1977 after serving 4 years at the Texas State Asylum. His influence on Ramirez continued. Adolescent Ramirez began to combine her burgeoning sexual fantasies with violence, including forced bondage and rape. While still in school, he got a job at a local Holiday Inn, where he used picks to rob his sleeping bosses. After a hotel guest walked into the room because he was done, he caught Ramirez attempting to rape his wife. Despite neutralizing her husband Ramirez at the scene, criminal charges were dropped when the out-of-state couple refused to return to testify against him. Ramirez dropped out of Jefferson High in the 9th grade. At 22, he moved to California, where he settled permanently. On April 10, 1984, Ramirez murdered 9-year-old May Leung in the basement of the hotel where she lived in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. He raped the girl, beat her and hung her body from a pipe before killing her. Ramirez's first known murder was not initially identified as being tied to the subsequent crime spree. In 2009, Ramirez's DNA was matched to a sample obtained at this crime scene. In 2016, authorities released evidence of a second suspect identified through a DNA sample taken from the crime scene believed to have been involved in Leung's murder. The authorities did not publicly disclose the suspect, who was identified as a child at the time, and did not bring charges for lack of evidence. On June 28, 1984, 79-year-old Jenny Vincou was brutally murdered in her Glassell Park apartment in Los Angeles. He had been stabbed multiple times while sleeping in his bed, and his throat had been cut so deeply that his head was nearly cut off. Ramirez's fingerprint was found on the curtain he touched to enter through an open window. Ramirez attacked 22-year-old Maria Hernandez outside her home in Rosemead, California on March 17, 1985, and shot her in the face with a .22 caliber pistol after she entered her garage. He survived when the bullet bounced off the keys he held in his hands as he lifted them to protect himself. Inside the house was Dale Yoshi Okazaki, 34, who heard the gunshot and bent behind a counter when she saw Ramirez enter the kitchen. When he lifted his head, he struck him on the forehead once and killed him. An hour after the Rosemead home invasion, Ramirez pulled 30-year-old Sia Lien, Veronica Yu out of her car in Monterey Park, California, shot her twice with a .22 caliber pistol and fled. He was pronounced dead after arriving at the hospital. With his 2 murders and his 3rd try, in a single day, the curly-haired assailant with bulging eyes and widely spaced, rotting teeth was widely covered in the news media, calling it the walk-in killer and the Valley Intruder. On March 27, 1985, Ramirez broke into a house for burglary in Whittier, California, at about 2 a.m. the year before, and killed Vincent Charles Zmarł, 64, who was sleeping at the time, by shooting him with a .22 caliber revolver. Zmarł's wife, Maxine Lavinia, 44, awoke to the sound of the gun that Zmarł had shot, and Ramirez beat her and tied her hands, asking where her valuables were. As she continued to search that room, Maxine escaped from her bonds and retrieved an unloaded shotgun from under the bed. Enraged, Ramirez shot him 3 times with .22, then took a large carving knife from the kitchen. He stabbed his body several times and dismembered it, then removed his eyes and placed them in a jewelry box he had left. The autopsy determined that the stabbings were done posthumously. Ramirez left footprints from a pair of avia sneakers on his flower beds, which police photographed. It was almost the only evidence the police had at the time. The bullets found at the crime scene matched the bullets found in previous attacks, and police realized the serial killer was large. Vincent and Maxine's bodies were found by their son Peter. May 14, 1985. Ramirez, Monterrey returned to the park and the 66-year-old Bill Doy and disabled 56-year-old wife Lillian entered the house. Doy faced when she entered the bedroom with Ramirez. Doy hit him in the face with a .22 semi-automatic pistol on the way to their guns. After beating up the unconscious man fatally injured in Ramirez, Lillian entered the bedroom, tied her up, then raped her after searching the house for valuables. Bill Doy died of his wounds while in the hospital. On the night of May 29, 1985, Ramirez drove a stolen car to Monrovia, California, stopping at the home of 83-year-old Mabel, Ma, Bell and her 81-year-old disabled sister Florence, Nettie, Lang. Finding a hammer in the kitchen, he beat and tied Lang in the bedroom, then tied and beat Bell before using an electrical cord to electrocute the woman. After raping Lang, she used Bell's lipstick to draw pentagrams on her thigh and on both bedroom walls. The women survived 2 days but remained in a coma. Bell later died of his wounds. The next day, Ramirez drove the same car to Burbank, California and sneaked into the home of 42-year-old Carol Kyle. At gunpoint, he handcuffed Kyle and his 11-year-old son, then ransacked the house. He freed Kyle to divert to the family's valuables. He then raped her repeatedly. Ramirez ordered her not to look at him, and at one point told him she was going to slit his eyes. He fled the scene after taking the boy out of the closet and retying the 2 of them in handcuffs. On the night of July 2, 1985, he drove a stolen car to Arcadia, California and randomly chose the home of 75-year-old Mary Louise Cannon. After sneaking into the widowed grandmother's house, she found him asleep in the bedroom. After beating him unconscious with a lamp, he took a 10-inch butcher knife from his kitchen and stabbed him repeatedly. He was found dead at the scene. On July 5, 1985, Ramirez broke into a home in Sierra Madre, California and beat 16-year-old Whitney Bennett with a tire iron while she was sleeping in her bedroom. After searching the kitchen for a knife and not finding it, Ramirez tried to strangle her with a telephone cord. He began to see electrical sparks emanating from the cable, and when his victim began to breathe, he ran away from home, believing that Jesus Christ had intervened and saved him. Bennett escaped being brutally beaten, despite the fact that 478 stitches were needed to close the ruptures in his scalp. July 7, 1985. Ramirez, Monterrey 61 Park-year-old Joyce Lucille Nelson robbed his house. He beat her while she slept on the living room sofa, using her fists and kicking her in the head. A shoe print from Avia sneakers was imprinted on her face. After touring the two neighborhoods, she returned to Monterey Park and chose the home of 63-year-old Sophie Dickman. Ramirez, Dickman, who attacked at gunpoint and handcuffed, tried to rape and stole their jewelry. When she made him swear that he had taken every precious thing, he told him to swear on the devil. On July 20, 1985, Ramirez retrieved a machete before driving a stolen Toyota to Glendale, California. She chose the home of Leila Niding, 66, and her husband, Maxon, 68. He entered the sleeping couple's bedroom and chipped the machete, then killed them with a .22 caliber pistol shot over the head. He also dismembered their bodies with a machete before looting their valuables. After quickly exiting the Niding residence with the stolen items, Ramirez went to Sun Valley. At 4:15 a.m., he entered the Covenant family home. He shot and killed the sleeping Chainarong Covenant in the head with a .25 caliber pistol, then repeatedly raped and beat Somkid Covenant. He tied up the couple's terrified 8-year-old son before dragging Somkid around the house to tell him where the valuables were. He demanded that he swore to the devil that he did not hide any money from him during the attack. On August 6, 1985, Ramirez traveled to Northridge, California and broke into Chris and Virginia Peterson's home. He entered their bedroom, frightened 27-year-old Virginia, and shot him in the face with a .25 caliber semi-automatic pistol. Then he shot Chris in the neck and tried to escape. Ramirez got into a fight with Chris while avoiding 2 more shots during the fight before he managed to escape. The couple recovered from their injuries. On August 8, 1985, Ramirez drove a stolen car to the Diamond Bar in California and chose the home of Sakina Abawath, 27, and her husband, Elias Abawath, 31. After 2:30, he entered the house and proceeded to the bedroom. He killed the sleeping Elias instantly by shooting him in the head with a .25 caliber pistol. He handcuffed Sakina and forced her to reveal the locations of her precious jewels and brutally raped her. He repeatedly demanded that he swore to Satan that he would not scream during his attacks. When the couple's 3-year-old son entered the bedroom, Ramirez tied the boy up and continued to rape Sakina. After Ramirez left home, Sakina untied her son and sent him to his neighbors for help. Following media coverage of his crimes, Ramirez left Los Angeles and set out for the San Francisco Bay Area. On August 18, 1985, Peter and Barbara broke into Pan's home. He shot the 66-year-old sleeper Peter in the temple with a .25 caliber pistol. He then beat and raped Barbara at the age of 62, hitting her on the head and leaving her to die. At the scene, Ramirez used lipstick to draw a pentagram and the phrase, "Jack the Knife," on her bedroom wall. When ballistic and shoe print evidence from the Los Angeles crime scene was discovered to match the Pan crime scene, San Francisco's Mayor Dianne Feinstein held a press conference where she televised the information. This leak infuriated the detectives in the case as they knew the killer would follow the media, which gave him the opportunity to destroy important forensic evidence. Ramirez, who really watched the press, threw his 11.5 Avia sneakers on the side of the Golden Gate Bridge that night. He remained in the area for a few more days before returning to the Los Angeles area. On August 24, 1985, Ramirez drove to Mission Viejo in a stolen orange Toyota. That night, James Romero Jr., who had just returned from a family vacation in Rosarito Beach, Mexico's house, entered. Romero's son, 13-year-old James Romero III, was awake and heard Ramirez's voices outside the house. Thinking he was a thief, James woke his family and Ramirez fled the scene. James went out and noted the car's color, make, style, and part of the license plate. Romero contacted the police with this information, as James thought he was a thief. After this encounter, Ramirez walked through the back door of Bill Carnes, 30, and his fiancée, Inez Erickson, 29. Ramirez entered the sleeping couple's bedroom and woke Carnes when he pulled the trigger of his .25 caliber pistol. He shot Carnes in the head 3 times before turning his attention to Erickson. Ramirez told the terrified woman that he was the night hunter, forcing her to swear she loved the devil as he beat her with his fists and tied her with ties to the closet. After playing What If He Found Ramirez, Erickson was dragged to another room to rape her. He then asked for cash and more jewelry, prompting him to swear to the devil when there was nothing more left. "Tell them the night hunter is here," Ramirez said to Erickson before leaving the house. Erickson untied himself and went to a neighbor's house to seek help for his seriously injured fiancée. Surgeons removed 2 bullets from his head and they surviving their wounds. Erickson detailed the attacker to investigators and police took Ramirez's footprint from the Romero house. The stolen car was found at the Wilshire Center in Los Angeles on August 28, and despite Ramirez carefully cleaning the car to leave no evidence, police were able to get a single fingerprint from the rearview mirror. Fingerprints marked Richard Muñoz Ramírez, 25, from Texas, with a long criminal record for traffic and drug dealing. On December 12, 1984, law enforcement decided to release a photo of Ramirez to the media and to arrest him for auto theft. Photo, bottom right. The night hunter now had a face. Police announced at the press conference, "We know who you are and soon everyone will know. There is nowhere for you to hide." On August 30, 1985, Ramirez boarded a bus to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother, unaware that he had become the headline news in nearly every newspaper and television station in California. Unable to meet with his brother, he returned to Los Angeles on the morning of August 31. Hoping to catch the killer, he passed police officers checking the bus terminal and entered a convenience store in East Los Angeles. After a group of elderly Mexican women fearfully described him as El Matador, or the killer, Ramirez saw his face on the front pages of the newspaper rack and fled the store in panic. After crossing the Santa Ana freeway, he tried to kidnap a woman, but was chased by those following him. After being able to evade his pursuers for a while, he was eventually caught by a group of people, one of whom struck him in the head with a metal rod. The group hired Ramirez and brutally beat him until the police came and detained him. Jury selection for the trial began on July 22, 1988. The district court in Ramirez, on the pentagram, raised a hand drawn and "Hail Satan. Long live the devil," he shouted. On August 3, 1988, the Los Angeles Times reported that some prison staff had heard that Ramirez was planning to shoot the prosecutor with a gun he was going to bring into the courtroom. As a result, metal detectors were installed outside and intensive examinations were made of people entering. On August 14, the trial was adjourned because one of the jurors, Phyllis Singletary, did not show up in the courtroom. He was shot dead in his apartment later that day. The jury was afraid because they were wondering if Ramirez had somehow orchestrated this event from his prison cell and could reach the other jurors. However, it was later determined that Ramirez was not responsible for Singletary's death, as she was shot and killed by her boyfriend, who committed suicide with the same gun in a hotel. The juror who replaced Singletary was terrified on his way home. On September 20, 1989, Ramirez was convicted of all charges: 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults and 14 thefts. He was sentenced to die in California's gas chamber during the sentencing phase of the trial on November 7, 1989. Big deal. Death comes with the land. See you at Disneyland, he told reporters after the death sentences.
Big deal. Death always went with the territories. I'll see you in Disneyland.
Said. The trial cost $1.8 million, $3.71 million in 2019 dollars, then the most expensive trial in California history until the O.J. Simpson murder case in 1994. During the trial, he had fans who wrote to Ramirez and came to visit. Beginning in 1985, Doreen Leyva wrote him about 75 letters during his confinement. In 1988, Ramirez proposed to Leyva, and they were married on October 3, 1996, at the San Quentin State Penitentiary in California. Years before Ramirez's death, Leyva said he would commit suicide if Ramirez was executed. However, Leyva eventually broke up with Ramirez. At his death, Ramirez was engaged to a 23-year-old female writer. By some estimates, he could have been in his early 70s before he was executed, due to California's lengthy appeals process. On August 7, 2006, Ramirez's first, California Supreme Court convictions and appeals for the death penalty were unsuccessful. On September 7, 2006, the California Supreme Court denied the request for a retrial. Ramirez filed an appeal until the time of his death. Psychiatrist Michael H. Stone describes Ramirez as a congenital psychopath as opposed to a born psychopath. He says Ramirez's schizoid personality disorder contributed to his indifference to the suffering of his victims and his untraceability. Ramirez died of complications from B-cell lymphoma on June 7, 2013, at Marin General Hospital in Green Bay, California. He was also afflicted by chronic substance abuse and chronic hepatitis C viral infection. At the age of 53, he was on death row for more than 23 years. Richard Ramirez probably went through all of this because of the events that led to his cat in the past. No baby can be born bad. Not so with Richard, but everything he'd been through had prepared him for the serial killer he would become. It's an easy way of having killed so many people a reason to be. Murder in Los Angeles, the Los architectural approach to mind. It's as if the window door factor that can be opened from the outside directly invites these murders. Houses are always single-story and detached, and they can be unlocked from the outside. How safe can a detached house window be that can be opened from the outside? When the murders took place, the people started to get locked up. Moreover, it should not be surprising that Ramirez killed so many people from those times when we know that there are no camera recordings. Here is an interview he gave in prison.
Is it chemistry? Is it genetics? Is there such a thing as a bad seed when a baby is born? Is he already a serial killer, or is he created by his own deeds and feelings throughout his life and his environment? Throughout my childhood and up to the time I was 18 years old, I believed in God. And then for 2-3 years, I became sort of like an atheist. I didn't believe.
Did you kill 13 people?
It would be improper for me to comment on my LA convictions and on my pending case here in San Francisco.
Why?
Because of my appeals.
Are you appealing these because you say you're innocent? You didn't kill 13 people?
That is correct.
You didn't kill 13 people.
Again, it would be improper for me to comment in any regard to that question.
You have now entered a very rare group of people in this country. You're in the ranks of Ted Bundy, Charlie Manson. You claim you didn't commit these murders, but you're right in there with these guys as far as anyone is concerned.
Do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Why don't you tell me what kind of emotions are going through you right now?
I'll tell you what. I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why?
I don't care to explain that. Let the quote stand for itself. People in this day and age are brainwashed, programmed like a computer, be nothing more than puppets. This nation, this country was founded on violence. Violent delights tend to have violent ends. Madness is something rare in individuals, but in groups, people, and ages, it is a rule. But killing is killing, whether done for duty, profit, or fun. Men murdered themselves into this democracy.
You're very good at following your script, Richard, but not so much at answering my direct questions. A lot was made of your being a devil worshiper. Do you worship the devil? Have you ever studied Satanism?
There are different sects of Satanism.
Have you studied, just yes or no, please, have you ever studied Satanism?
Yes, I have.
Do you worship the devil?
No comment.
Come on, Richard.
I can tell you a little bit about Satanism.
I would like to hear what you have to say then.
It is undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. It's power. It's power without charity. A Satanist admits to being evil.
Do you admit to being evil?
We are all evil. In some form or another, are we not?
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes. I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil. Evil has always existed. The perfect world most people seek shall never come to pass, and it's going to get worse. The great epochs of our lives is when we gain the courage to rebaptize our evil qualities as being our best qualities.
I think most humans have in them the capacity to commit murder. They choose not to, not because they are morally superior as they so commonly claim, but because they are imprisoned in a web of responsibilities, commitments, beliefs, and sentiments.
Richard.
And that would render murder an absurd gamble or ridiculous self-destruction.
And serial killers and most killers in general have a dead conscience. Normal, ordinary people do not think like a serial killer. They have no conception of what is going through a killer's mind, how he operates. I think there is a divine force that is out there. I believe also there's a malevolent force that is out there. Then again, they could be one and the same. Death is death, and it is said that no man knows his own death. Sure, for a few minutes you might feel it. I've really not given much thought to that. And serial killers and most killers in general have a dead conscience. No morals, no scruples, no conscience. For some, it is the very act of killing another human being that is sexual to them. Bloodlust, I guess you could say. Some serial killers will let you live if you talk to them, if you get to know them, if they get to know you. Some serial killers will take pity while others won't. And this not only applies to serial killers, but killers in general.